All right, today we're jumping into one of history's most fascinating and honestly mysterious spiritual partnerships. We're talking about Shams Tabrizi, this enigmatic mystic who basically walked into the life of a famous scholar and completely transformed him into Rumi, the poet of divine love that the world knows and adores today.
And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? This is the central question of our whole story today. How can just one friendship, one single profound connection between two people, actually ripple out through the centuries and change the world? It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what we're looking at here.
So, to really understand what happened, we need to set the stage. Before they ever met, these two men were living in completely different universes. To get the impact of the explosion, you have to understand the chemicals before they were mixed, right?
And the contrast really couldn't be more dramatic. On one side, you've got Jalaluddin Rumi. He's a big deal. A respected scholar, a judge, a guy with huge intellectual horsepower and social standing, totally rooted in his community in Konya. And then you have Shams Tabrizi, a wandering dervish, a mystic who owned nothing, was attached to nothing, no titles, no home, no prestige. All he had was this burning desire for a direct, personal experience of God.
So you've got these two opposite poles, these two completely different worlds. And this is the moment they smash into each other. And it wasn't just a meeting, it was like a spiritual Big Bang.
The year is 1244. Picture the scene. In the busy city of Konya, the scholar meets the wanderer. And in that single moment, everything changes.
Everything we know about that encounter says the connection was just instant. It was electric. This wasn't some student finding a new teacher. No, it was like a moment of recognition, like two souls who had been looking for each other across lifetimes finally collided. An inseparable bond was formed right then and there.
And Shams, wow, he did not waste any time. He wasn't there to flatter Rumi. He was there to completely shatter his world. Shams immediately challenged Rumi's dependence on books and his intellectual pride. He basically told him, "Your knowledge is a cage." He pushed him to ditch the safety of scholarship for the terrifying, amazing, direct experience of the divine.
But a connection that intense, that world-changing, it's going to make waves. It doesn't happen quietly. And this sacred bond came with a huge price tag, one that rocked Rumi's entire community.
So think about it. Rumi, this very public teacher, suddenly just retreats. He locks himself away with Shams for days, even weeks at a time, lost in conversation. And his students, his followers, they felt totally abandoned. You can imagine, right? At first, it was probably confusion, like where did our teacher go? But that confusion quickly soured into deep resentment and intense jealousy. This stranger had stolen their master.
And all that conflict, all that jealousy, it leads to this great, tragic mystery right at the heart of the story. Because one night, Shams just vanished. He was gone. Did he leave on his own? Maybe to protect Rumi and force him to grow? Or, and this is what many people suspect, was he murdered by Rumi's resentful followers? We still don't know for sure.
But in a way, it almost doesn't matter how he vanished. The loss of Shams was the final devastating piece of the puzzle that completed Rumi's transformation. Rumi was absolutely heartbroken. And out of the ashes of that grief and that immense love, Rumi the poet was born. He poured all of it, all the love, all the sorrow for his lost friend, into an ocean of poetry that has mesmerized the world ever since.
So what was it? What were these ideas that Shams brought to the table that were so powerful they could spark a revolution in one man's soul? Let's take a look at the core of what he was all about.
This, right here, this is the absolute center of it all. For Shams, books and intellect could only get you so far. The real path, the only path, was love. A passionate, all-consuming, transformative fire of love. That, he said, was the ultimate bridge between a person and God.
So, okay, how do you find that kind of love? Well, for Shams, it meant you had to dismantle your own ego. First, you had to break out of the prison of your own pride and intelligence. Then, you had to embrace complete humility. And finally, you had to just surrender, let go of control, and trust in something bigger than yourself.
Shams also had a real problem with empty religious rituals. People just going through the motions. He believed that real truth had to be an authentic, inner experience. He wasn't about just checking boxes. He wanted a genuine connection, not just a performance of faith. And this all feeds into his amazing concept of the mirror of friendship. This is exactly what he believed he was for Rumi. See, a true spiritual friend isn't someone who just tells you you're great. They're a mirror. They show you your beauty, for sure, but they also show you your flaws, your ego, your attachments. Also, you can see them and break free from them to find out who you really are.
So it's easy to hear all this and think, okay, that's a powerful story from the 13th century. But why are we still talking about it today? Why does it still matter so much? Well, because the story is about us too. The lessons from Shams are just completely universal. He teaches us that real spirituality is about what's happening inside, not what it looks like on the outside. His focus on love as the main event is why Rumi's poetry speaks to people of all backgrounds. It transcends dogma. His story shows us that if you want real transformation, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be willing to be broken open. And of course, it proves that one incredible friendship really can change the world.
And that brings us full circle, back to a question Shams himself would probably ask. He never wrote a single book, but his entire spirit is alive in every word Rumi ever wrote. Shams lit the fire. And so, he leaves us with this to think about. In our own lives, what does it really mean to choose love as a spiritual path?